One of the major topics over the last 10 years has been this issue of economic inequality. We're told that economic inequality, the gap between those who might be poor and those who are rich, those who have a little bit and those who have a lot, or the gap between the middle class and the rich, we're told that that gap, the difference, the mathematical difference, is the source of all the problems we have in the world. Terrorism, it turns out, according to the New York Times, is caused by economic inequality. Slow economic growth in the Western world is caused, we are told, by economic inequality. The fact that poor people are not rising out of poverty is caused by economic inequality, we are told. And on and on and on. Every economic problem, every social problem is blamed on the gap, on the difference between how much some people make and how much the top 10% or the top 1% make. And indeed, over the last few years in America and in the West, we have demonized the very top 1%, as if they are somehow criminals, as if they are somehow bad people who are exploiting the rest of society, holding back the success of the rest of society because they dared to become billionaires. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, I don't know how well known she is in Israel. Boo, good, all right. You know enough about her to boo, that's good. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez recently said that a society that allows for the creation of billionaires, is by definition an immoral society. Notice that it's not about helping the poor rise up. It's about demonizing the people at the top. And I believe the entire debate about inequality is not about helping those at the bottom. We can talk about what helps those at the bottom. But it is indeed about demonizing wealth creators, demonizing the success, demonizing the 1%, the 10%. Depends on who you talk to and how radical they want to be. Right? So what's behind this whole movement towards inequality or the pretense that inequality matters? And there's a lot of things you can say about this, and we've only got a short period of time. So I want to focus on one particular aspect of this idea that inequality is a problem. Because one way in which people on the left often describe this problem of inequality, supposed problem of inequality, by the way, as far as I know, and nobody yet has shown me that I'm wrong, there is actually zero economic theory. There is no economic theory in existence that would suggest that inequality in and of itself is an economic problem. So this is not an economic issue. How do people make a lot of money? How do you make a lot of money? It's hard for me to see you guys. How do people make a lot? How do you become a billionaire? Anybody know how you become a billionaire? What's that? You start being a trillionaire. Since nobody's ever been a trillionaire, that doesn't work. How do you become a billionaire? You create something. I create stuff in my basement. It never turned into a billionaire. You create value. We all create value. I'm hopefully creating value right now. Believe me, they're not paying me $1 billion for this. Work hard. I know bricklayers who work hard and they don't make $1 billion. How do you make $1 billion? What's that? Luck, right? Some people are just lucky. It's a roulette wheel out there. Really? So you create something that people are willing to pay for. We're on the right track. But you're still not a billionaire because almost everybody creates something that people are willing to pay for. But you have to have scale. What makes people billionaires is that you create something that hundreds of millions of people want. And they want it so much that they're willing to pay you more than it costs you to produce. But it has to be hundreds of millions of people. Now, in doing that, in selling your product to hundreds of millions of people, have you made them better off or worse off? Why? I mean, they gave up money. They're poorer. But why are they willing to pay why am I willing to pay $1,000 for my iPhone? Because it's worth what to me? Much more than $1,000. Indeed, this is worth tens of thousands of dollars to me. Don't tell Apple. I don't want them to raise my price. But it's worth tens of thousands of dollars to me. I mean, this thing, supercomputer, more powerful than the computers that send man to the moon, more powerful than old, room full of, what did they call them? Mainframe computers, right? Bigger, more powerful than a mainframe computer. But it's not just a computer. That's the beauty here. It's an entertainment system. I can access every piece of music ever written, at a marginal cost of, what's the marginal cost of getting another piece of music on here? Zero. I can get every movie made at a marginal cost of zero, basically. So this is an entertainment center. It's a communication portal. I can communicate with my family from anywhere in the world via video. I mean, I know you guys are so young, you think we were born with this kind of attached to our hip. That this just came into existence when you did. I remember like before this. I remember like before cell phones. I remember like before computers. I'm old. But this is worth tens of thousands of dollars to me. So how do you become a billionaire? By selling a product, creating a value that hundreds of millions of people want, because it will improve their life, they're willing to pay more than it costs you to produce it. So the only way to become a billionaire is to change the lives of hundreds of millions of people for the better. And if you really want to be a billionaire, you have to do it over and over and over again, because one time is not enough. The only way to become a billionaire is to make the world a better place over and over again, impact the lives of hundreds of millions or billions of people. I'll give you a quick example. How many people here have read Harry Potter? Harry Potter. Oh, wow, I expect more. All right, I read Harry Potter, right? And the problem with Harry Potter is that Harry Potter is responsible for dramatically increasing inequality. Why? Because J.K. Rowling, the author of Harry Potter, became a billionaire, and I got poorer. Because my sons, I have two boys, they're about Harry Potter's age. So every time a book came out, I had to buy 2 copies. And then I wanted to read it, so I had to buy an audio tape for me. And then there were the movies, not very good, but we saw them all because you had to, right? And then there's the rides in Disneyland, Harry Potter rides and everything. I've made the calculation that I've spent about $6,000 on Harry Potter. And I don't know how many economists there are here, or economic students there are here. If you measure that, what you see is that I got poorer by $6,000, and J.K. Rowling became a billionaire. That's not fair. That's wrong. Right? Now, did I become poorer by $6,000? Did I? Well, yes, if you're an economist. This is why economics is a problematic field. Because all economics can do is measure dollars, measure money. But as a human being, did I become poorer? No, because I got an enormous spiritual value. Not only did I enjoy Harry Potter, but I enjoyed the fact that my children enjoyed Harry Potter. And it created a huge amount of satisfaction and happiness and joy in my household. So thank you, J.K. Rowling, for becoming a billionaire. You made my life better. And my point is, that's the only way to become a billionaire. They make our lives better. When I see a billionaire, my response is, thank you. I almost don't care what they've made, because I know that the only way they became a billionaire is by making my life in some way better. Unless they're crooks. Then they should go to jail. That's income inequality. That's what we measure. It's their success in improving our lives. But why is it such a problem? Because think about it. What we measure are all we can measure are dollars. And we have this perspective that there is a certain amount of wealth in the world, in a country, in Israel, right? We call it, we often use, when we talk about inequality, the pie analogy. The pie, there's a national pie, pizza, uga, yesh uga. Lamdina yesh uga. And the state divides up this pie. And J.K. Rowling gets a big piece of the pie, and I get a little piece of the pie. And we think about it, pies, we go, well, that's not fair. Because when the dad or when a group of friends sit around, you're playing poker, you're playing something, and you bring pizza, the expectation is that everybody gets an equal share of the pie. It's not fair otherwise. Why are you getting such a huge piece and I'm getting such a little piece? So we think of wealth as this big pie. And then the people in the government over there, they have to decide how to divide the pie. Yesterday I asked somebody, what is economics about? And somebody said, the distribution of wealth, the allocation of wealth. And that's this perspective. There's wealth, a big pie, and now we have to distribute it. And if you just think in those terms, well, the right way to distribute it is to distribute it equally. But what's the problem with this pie analogy? It's finite. Well, wait a minute. He says there's only this pie. And indeed, what happens to wealth? It grows. It gets bigger. So the first problem with the pie analogy is it assumes that wealth is finite. And it assumes that the pie doesn't grow, but the pie does grow. And indeed, the pie grows based on the incentives you provide people and based on how much of the pie I get and how I invest it and what I do with the pie. So the first problem is it's a static pie. It should be an expanding pie. But that's not the real problem with the pie analogy. What's the real problem with the pie analogy? What's the real problem with the pie analogy? What's that? Somebody divides it, right? Okay, so, you know what? It's not somebody. We vote. We're democracy, right? We love democracy. Who doesn't love democracy? Me, I guess I'm the only one. Yeah, no, but it's worse than that. There is no pie. Give me a break. There is no pie. You can't buy into the analogy. You baked a pie, and you baked a pie, and you baked a pie, and maybe I baked a pie. And each one of us has a pie. And then some economist or some politicians smushes them all together and says there's a national pie. There's no such thing as national pies. There's no such thing as national wealth. You don't own my pie. Keep your hands off my pie. My pie is particularly delicious. There's no such thing as a national pie. So I did an interview once on inequality with this guy, and we did the interview in a car. This was for the Blaze Network, Glenn Beck's thing. And we're driving around, we go to McDonald's, and we buy a bunch of pies. I buy some pies, he buys some pies. And then we try to make a national pie. So we squished them all together. And it was a disaster because the car was filthy and everything went flying all over the place and nobody could eat their pies, right? But that's what economists do. They pretend that because they can add up your wealth, the wealth is collectively owned. But there is no such thing as collective wealth. There is no such thing as national wealth. There's no such thing as GDP. There's no such thing as GDP. It's just something economists, because they can do math, they can add and subtract and maybe do a little bit of algebra. God forbid they do more than that. They come up with a number. The GDP of Israel grew like that. But what does that mean? The only question that matters to you is, did your wealth grow? Did you create more wealth? Are your opportunities more? So the problem is that we view economics in collectivistic terms. We view wealth as if it's owned by society. We view wealth as if we have it. We don't have anything. I have my wealth. You have your wealth. You have your wealth. You have what you create. We need to shift the way we think about economics, away from aggregates, away from collectivization. Economics is not about the allocation of resources. Economics is about understanding the process of production and trade among individuals. Only individuals produce. Only individuals trade. Countries don't trade. That's another myth. Like America has a trade deficit. Really? Who's America? Anybody here? Israel has a trade. Who's Israel? Is there Israel here? I mean, you have a trade deficit every day with your grocery store. You go buy stuff at the grocery store, you leave your shekel there, and they don't buy anything from you. That's awful. Only individuals trade. Only individuals produce. Only individuals make wealth. And if somebody makes a big pie, if somebody creates a lot of wealth, it's his. It's not mine. I don't get to claim that it's mine because I happen to live in the same country as his. I don't get to claim that it's mine because I happen to be from the same tribe as he is. It's his pie. He created it. He gets to keep it. Keep your damn hands off of his pie and my pie and your pie. Economics is about individuals creating wealth, individuals producing, and then individuals trading. And the only role of politics is not to figure out who should get what. The only role of politics, the only role of government is to protect us from those who would steal our pies. That's it. It's to protect us so that we can have the freedom to go bake the pie we want to bake. To protect us so that we can go out and trade with whomever we want to trade. That's it. Government should be in the role of protector and nothing else. And how the pies get divided ultimately through trade and through production, who produces what and how much, is none of anybody's business. What inequality lands up being matters not. There's zero importance to economic inequality. It's an irrelevant topic. It doesn't matter one iota. The only thing that matters, and I know I'm supposed to end, and no Q&A, sorry. The only thing that matters is freedom. The freedom to bake your pie. And in freedom, guess what happens? We get inequality. Inequality is a feature of freedom. It's not a bug. It's not a problem. It's not something to be dealt with. It's a feature. The freer you are, you'll get inequality. How much? I don't know. And I don't care. And neither should anybody. The only equality that matters, the only equality that matters, is equality of freedom. It's equality of rights. It's equality before the law. And that's what freedom is. Freedom is when our rights are protected equally. Our right to life, liberty, property, and the pursuit of happiness. Thank you all. Okay, shelot. You can ask in Hebrew or English. Yes. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, so what are my thoughts on the children of billionaires who don't create anything but just get $1 billion? My thought is it's none of my business. That is, my view is whatever I have, I don't have $1 billion unfortunately, but whatever I have, it's mine. And I can do it as I wish. I can burn it, I can throw it in the garbage, or I can give it to my kids. And if you're a billionaire, maybe giving it to your kids is like burning it. right? But it's your business. It's none of mine. I don't believe in spoiling your kids. I don't believe in giving your kids a lot of money. But it's yours to do with as you will. So I don't believe that we get to decide that it's socially better to tax that or to redistribute that. That's none of my business. What you do with your money is yours. That's what property rights mean. That's what respecting individuals means. I'm not particularly excited about inheritance because I think it creates problems for the children. I don't think it's good for them. But that's your business, not mine. What about those who don't have the means to bake the pie? So in my view, in a free society, the number of people who really cannot bake a pie for themselves, a pie big enough to live off of, is trivial. It's way less than 1%. It's very few. And most of those people are taken care of by whom? Before charity. Family. And in a free society, you think, Israeli society is pretty wealthy today, certainly as compared to when I lived in Israel. You think you're rich. Imagine if you were free. How much richer you would be. When you live in a rich society, it's easy for family to take care of those who cannot take care of themselves. And if the family fails to take care of those who cannot take care of themselves, then those people then depend on charity. They depend on other people. Now that charity could be forced, called it the welfare state, or it could be voluntary. I'm against force. The role of government is to protect us from force, not to impose that force on us. So voluntary charity is the safety net. I believe in a safety net, but it has to be a voluntary safety net. It's a voluntary charitable safety net that, and I always ask audiences, how many of you are willing to help the tiny fraction of a percent who cannot help themselves and have no family, the orphans, the poor little babies, and they cannot take care of themselves? How many are willing to help them? And almost every hand in the hall, so to help them. What do you need the state to intervene for? And to fund a bunch of bureaucrats who don't help them, who actually hurt them. Right? All right, yeah. Ken. Okay, so what about cocaine or drug sellers who sell to, and indeed don't improve their lives, or pornography or whatever, bad values. I mean, in a free market, do you think a cocaine dealer can become a billionaire? No. I mean, cocaine is a commodity. It would be sold at anywhere. It would be damn cheap, and the margins would be almost zero. The only reason people become rich from cocaine today is what? Scarcity. It's because it's illegal, and therefore there's risk involved, and therefore you're paying them a risk premium, and the risk premium is huge. But if you legalize drugs, the profit goes away, and the marginal cost is zero, because what is true of a cocaine dealer? The value they're creating is negative or zero, and therefore their return is zero. Now they provide a value for those people who want to commit suicide, and there are people who want to commit suicide, and it's okay to help them. And they provide some value to people who want to destroy their own lives, and so they earn some return, but there's no way to become a billionaire or a millionaire or wealthy off of the trade of a commodity that has no value for human life. התחלתי מאוחר. התחלתי ב-12 ונתתי לי חצי שעה, נכון? אוקיי, שאלה אחת, אוקיי. כן. אז האם יש סכנה לאי יציבות השלטון בחברה חופשית בגלל שיש פער גדול בין אלה שהם עניים, נקרא להם, לבין סופר עשירים? והתשובה היא לא. בפירוש לא. קודם כל, אין שום דוגמה בהיסטוריה האנושית שהעניים, ונקרא להם עניים, כי יחסית הם עניים, הם מרדו כנגד העשירים בשוק חופשי. אפילו בשוק חופשי קצת. זה לא קורה. המהפכה הצרפתית לא הייתה שוק חופשי. זה היה מלכים ועבדים. בהונג קונג יש פער אדיר בין העניים לבין העשירים. There's no social unrest about inequality. There's social unrest about clamping down on freedoms and not being allowed to express yourself, but there's no social arrest about inequality. In America, the gap between rich and poor, suddenly in the 19th century, was very large, and it was a relatively free country, and there was no social unrest that led to a revolution to tear down the wealthy. Yes, but התוכניות של רוזוולט שהתחילו בשנות ה-30 וה-40, היו על בסיס רעיוני, הם לא היו בגלל שאנשים were pissed off at the fact that there was inequality. It was about ideas, and ideas that were prepared. Everything's about ideas at the end. Ideas shape history, not your material well-being. So the ideas that led to Roosevelt and led to the New Deal were the ideas of the progressive movement that started in the 1850s and was slowly injected into American society and slowly worked their way and taught people, just like they do today, taught people to be envious, taught people to hate the wealthy, taught people that the wealthy become wealthy by exploitation, not by value creation. But you need to teach people that, or to brainwash people that, or to convince people of that before you can have the revolution, if you will. In a free society where we understand where wealth comes from, you couldn't do that. You wouldn't be successful at doing that. It's only because capitalism was relatively young and people didn't understand where wealth truly came from and how you become a billionaire that the progressives were successful in doing that. And the challenge we have today is to reverse the education that the kids, the challenge we have today is education, education, education. And this is why the more freedom in education, the better. If just a comment, if there's one area more important than any other area in a society, it's education. And what do we believe in? We believe in freedom, and we think education is important. So what's the only policy we should have towards education? Freedom. We need to find a way to free education and to make it as market-driven, as private, so that the state has, what role in education should the state have? Zero. It should protect our rights. It should protect the ability of the kid to go to whatever school they want and can afford. That's it. No other role in education. And when we can get to that point, then we've won. Thank you all.